Okay, good evening, Rabbi. We're going to talk tonight about the Parashat Shavua, which is Beshalach. Right? What is Beshalach talking about? It's talking about the Jews leaving Mitzrayim and going to the wilderness. This is the idea, right? So, the truth is that there's actually one basic moral message over here that reverbs and resounds all the time in this parasha, in this portion. So we have to catch that message and try to relate and expound on that, right? That's the idea. So in order to, first of all, to get into it a little bit, one of the interesting things is that they leave Eretz Mitzrayim, they leave Mitzrayim, and they're now going to the Yam Suf, to the sea, right? This is the Red Sea, actually, that's what it was, right? The Red Sea was the sea that they went to. So what happened was that they're now on the edge of the sea, and the Egyptians are coming to retrieve them and take them back to Mitzrayim. This is what they wanted, right? So what happened was that there was some kind of like a pause over there. The Egyptians approached them. The Jews are here on one side next to the sea. They're on the other side, one opposed to the other. So there was actually, this was a very crucial moment in Jewish history. Why is that? What's the reason why it was crucial? Because this was determining the outcome of the conflict between the Egyptians and the Jews. Who was going to be victorious in the end? This was the end. This was the final battle.
Okay.
There's not going to be another one after that, right? So what happened was that because of that, Paro came here now to make war, to take them back, to retrieve them back. So this is a war, And what happens in a war is like this. People think, if you look on the news, if you look on all kinds of podcasts and all kinds of things like this, what do you find over there? They tell you, well, this country has this weapon, they have this javelin, they have these planes, and the F this and the F that, right? F this, F that, the four-letter words, right?
Yeah.
That's it, right? This F and that F, and then they have the missiles and all kinds of things, right? All kinds of drones and this and that, all kinds of things, technology. So what does that mean? That they think, well, okay, how does one nation stack up to the other? Let's see what weapons they have. Let's see what weapons they have. And then we'll know pretty much what the outcome of the war is going to be, right? According to human nature, according to the laws of nature. That's the idea, right? So the truth is, but in Judaism, we know that this is all, it's all, nothing. It's worthless, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Stacking up one army with the other to see which one has more manpower, this power, sea power, air power. Who cares about that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't make war like that. When two nations are making war, Chazal teach us, it doesn't work like that. So how does it work? Very simple. What happens is that before the war starts, there is a hearing that they have right in the Shemaim, in the heavens, to judge which nation is more righteous than the other, which one has more zechuyot, which one has more merits, which one has more mitzvot, which one has more morality, all kinds of things like this. This is how the war goes. So whoever has more merits, whoever has more zechuyot, that's the one that wins the war. It has nothing to do with anything else. Even though the weapons are actually coming to show the actual physical battle, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it has nothing to do with it. He doesn't. So who is really making the war if that's the case? So it says over here in the Parsha, Adonai Ish Milchama. Who is the real man of war? Hashem is the man of war. He's the one who makes the war. So don't come and brag, and say, we won the war. You won the war? No, Hashem won the war for you. Why is that? Because He found you to be more righteous than the other nation. So what happened was that this is exactly what was going on when the Egyptians approached the Jews at the sea. They were comparing in Shemai, in the heavens, who was more righteous, this nation or that nation? This was the idea, So it's like a deliberation going on. Back and forth, what about this, what about that, what about this issue, what about that issue? So what happened was that in the end, the decision was that the Jews are more righteous than the Egyptians. So therefore, the Egyptians drowned in the sea, right? And the Jews came out alive and good, healthy, and everything was good. Right? Chazal tells, by the way, an interesting thing about this. Number one, they say that kasher zivugo shel adam mikriyat yam suf. What does that mean? That a person to attain a match, right, for his marriage, is more difficult than the splitting of the sea. This is the idea. That's how hard it is to find the proper match when you get married. Can you close this door, by the way? It's very cold. I'm sorry. Thank you. So, why is it so difficult to find a match? First of all, let me ask you a question, right? Is it really hard for God to split the sea? For him, it's just like, the wave of a finger. He doesn't have any fingers, but it's allegory. Is it hard for him to split the sea? So why are you telling me that the match is even harder than splitting of the sea? What does that mean? For him, that's easy to split the sea. No, we're not talking about that. For him to split the sea is very easy. But the point was, to find who's more righteous, one nation or the other, this is the difficult part. You have to judge, adjudicate, to see which one is more righteous. So if one is more righteous than the other, he's going to win the war, he's going to win the battle. This is the idea. This is very, very hard to judge all the little details, the very nation, what merits they have, what problems they have, what sins they have, how to stack up one against the other. It's not only quantity, it's also quality, right? It's not only how many mitzvot you did, but what are the quality of the mitzvot that you did also. And it's also not only quantity of the sins, it's also the quality of the sins. How severe are they, right? How bad are they? All kinds of things like this. All these things have to be weighed. This is very hard to judge, these things. This is what it means that splitting of the sea is very difficult. For Hashem to split the sea, physically, it's nothing for him. But to judge which nation is more righteous, that's what was more difficult over there. So it comes and tells you now, Dosh Baruch Hu, comes and tells you the Gemara. Where is this Gemara, by the way? This Gemara is brought in Masechet Gittin. In the last chapter over there, it says over there that to find a match for a person is more difficult than the splitting of the sea. So then, I ask you, what does one have to do with the other? Why is it more difficult? What's the idea? So the idea is, explains the Zohar Kadosh, it is like this. That for a person, in order for a person to find the right match, that God should match him up with a woman, what you need basically is that they have to have the same merits and the same zechut, one as the other. It has to be 100% the same. And it's very hard to find somebody like that who's exactly the same as you. Because if they're not the same, says the Zohar Kadosh, they can't be matched up together. They don't belong together. It has to be 100% a match. But says the Gemara, what are we talking about? We're talking about Zivug Sheni. What does that mean, Zivug Sheni? The second match. What does that mean? If a person had already for his first wife, right? And he got widowed with her, or he got divorced with her, whatever it is, right? So what happens is now, once the first wife is gone, for some reason, you need a second wife now, right? You gotta go on with life. Life goes on, right? You don't have to, mourn for your loss forever. So, therefore, what we say is like this. Please, we have a shiur. So what we have is like this, right? That we have the issue that you have to be 100% compatible with that person. That's talking about the second zivug. The second match. The first match is already over. So now comes the second match. The first match is announced from heaven. It says in the Gemara. What does that mean? 40 days before a person is born, they announce in heaven who he's destined to marry. That's the first one, the first wife. But if he has to go to a second wife, that one was not announced to anybody. So therefore now, the second wife needs to be perfectly compatible one with the other. Very hard to find that. Can you imagine two people that are exactly the same in their merits? Hard to find such a thing like this. 100% the same. So, this is why it's more difficult than the splitting of a sea. You know why? Because the splitting of a sea, what does it involve? To find which nature is more righteous than the other. This is also very hard. You have to weigh all the pros and cons of each nation. But here, what we're saying is that it has to be 100% equal. That's even harder to find. 100% equal. That's even harder. That's even more difficult. This is exactly what I say, that the zivug of a person, the match of a person, the second match we're talking about, is more difficult than the splitting of the sea. This is the reason why, according to Zohar Kadosh. Right? So, this is exactly what happened to the Jewish people. they were deemed to be more righteous than the Egyptians, so therefore the Egyptians drowned in the sea. By the way, the interesting thing is, if you look in the history of the Jewish people, one interesting thing you'll find is that all the enemies of the Jewish people, when they had conflicts with enemies throughout history, and also all the wicked people in general, right? All the wicked, Hashem usually judged them with water, right? Drowned them in the water. Here also the Egyptians were drowned in the water, right? Also with Noah's Ark, right? The wicked were drowned in the water. There was also another flood which came in the generation of Enosh, a different person who was alive at a different time. So we see, right, that always the flood comes and drowns the wicked. Mm-hmm. They say, by the way, the same thing is going to happen also with Mashiach. What does that mean? There's going to be a big flood, and all the wicked are going to be drowned in that flood. Only the righteous will be saved. They say, by the way, very good idea. At that time, you should be in Eretz Israel. You know why? Because it's the highest of all the lands, and therefore all the other lands will get flooded. Miami, all these places, right, will get flooded. Then Miami Beach will get flooded. But if you're in Eretz Israel, you won't get flooded over there because it's higher. And so what happens is that very good idea to be at that time in Eretz Israel if you have the zechut. Same thing, right? You don't want to be over here at that time. So anyway, where does it say this? By the way, it says in Yalkut Reuveni that there's going to be a flood also at that time. So okay, so we see, right, that many times HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses the concept of flooding to destroy the wicked, the enemies of the Jews also. Same thing we also find with the war of Sisera, right? Sisera was a general that was the enemy of the Jews, and his people were drowned in the water as well. Right? So again, we see, right, the whole thing with water. Why do I tell you all this with the water? What's the reason? Because there's a story, right, brought down in the Midrashim and also in the Gemara, Masechet Gittin. It says over there that Titus the Harasha, Titus, the one who destroyed the temple, the Roman emperor. What happened was that he was a very sick man. This guy, very sick, very unusually ill person. Very, very wicked, very corrupted. Right, the most vile person you could ever meet. Right, how vile was he? How disgusting was he? What happened was
worse than Caligula.
Same family. Same family. Let's say. So what happens is that it's one mishpacha. It's jamatia. So it happens like this, right? That Titus, what does he do? He comes and destroys the temple, and what happened was that he actually went into the temple himself, personally. Yeah. He went inside, he went into the Holy of Holies, the most holy place over there, and what did he do? He brought a prostitute in there, Zona, Zona.
Yeah.
He brought a prostitute, and he opened up a Sefer Torah, he laid it out, and he did, a sex act on a Sefer Torah with a prostitute. You have to be a pretty sick person to do something like that, right? You have to be pretty sick, right? So, sacrilegious, to the max, right? That's the idea. So then, what he did was he took a sword, and he put it into the place of the Holy of Holies, and blood started gushing out, So he thought, with his pagan mind, with his primitive mind, he killed God, because he thought that was God. So he said, since blood gushed out, I must have killed God. Can you imagine such a thing? Guy was nuts, pretty crazy guy. Why do I tell you a story? Because what happens is, when you do something like that, there's going to be punishment. It's going to come. You're not going to get away with something like that. You're not going to get scot-free off. You're gonna pay for that. You know how it is, right? So the Gemara tells over how he paid for this, right? The sin that he did, like that, destroying the temple, and then, right, doing all this disgusting, repulsive, repugnant kind of behavior, atrocities. So what happened was that as he destroyed the temple, so he's going back now to Rome, to celebrate. They made the Arch of Titus over there. There's an arch over there, right? You know where that is. It's still in Rome. It's still there. That he made to celebrate the victory over the Jews. So what happened was that as he was going back with a ship, in those days they didn't have planes, obviously, right? Going back with a ship. So what happened was that there was a big storm that came up in the sea, It says in the Gemara. And, the ship started to rock, rock back and forth like this, Rock and roll. He was rock and rolling over there, right? Like this. So what happened was that they saw the storm was going to destroy the ship, It was totally going to mutilate the ship. So what does Titus say, right? He knows that God is doing this to him, He realizes. He says, he got me, huh? What I did to him, now I'm going to pay for it. So he makes one wise-ass comment, there, wise Alec comment.
Very sorry.
Mechila. Do not talk about it. No, Mechila, sorry. Another half hour. So, as we said, what happens is that now the storm is coming up. So says Titus in his mind like this. Says Titus. He says, this God, I realize one thing. Their God, the God of the Jews, he always gets us when we're in the sea. He wants to have his power in the sea. That's what he did to Paro. That's what he did to Sisra. That's what he did to the people of the flood. That's what he did to the generation of Enosh. Everything was with the sea. That's the idea. So he says, you know what? Let if he really wants to fight with me, says Titus, let God, let me go to dry land and let him fight with me over there. Then I'll beat him over there. That's what he says. That's the idea, right? So what happens? What happens is that God, he heard these wise comments. So what does he say to Titus? Not personally, but he says in his mind. He says, you know what? He says, since you want to fight with me on the dry land, I'll let you do that. I'll stop the storm now, right? And what I'll do is, I'll get you on the dry land, just like you wished. So he says, what I'm going to do to you? I'm going to bring you one of the smallest creatures that I have, and he's going to make war with you. A little tiny creature. What is that? The mosquito, right? The yatush. I'm going to bring you this mosquito on the dry land to make war with you. This is the idea. So what happens is that once he gets on dry land, Titus, comes the mosquito, right? And he goes inside his nostrils, one of his nostrils, and goes inside his brain. So this mosquito was driving him crazy. Every day it was like knocking on his, on his brain over there, like, chuk, 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 So what was going on over there? The truth was, right, that he was eating his brain. Little by little, his brain was being eaten by the mosquito. This is what happened to Titus. So he's feeling this, right, every day, like knocking going on in his head, So he had to do all kinds of remedies to try to solve the problem. But what happened was, in the end, this mosquito, he ate all his brain, So what happened was that when he died, after this whole episode, they opened up his brain. They found that the mosquito was like very large, like a pounder, 2-pounder, 2-pound baby over there. That's what they found, because he dared to do something like this to the temple of God. Such atrocities like this he committed. This is the idea. This is what happened with Titus. So why do I tell you that? Because this was very foolish what Titus did, right? He said, let him. His power is only in the sea. Is that really true? God's power is only in the sea. He created the whole world. The whole world is under his dominion. So there's no such a thing like that. That his power is in the sea, right? Where do we find such a thing like this? The most ridiculous thing you ever heard, right? That's the idea. So that's what happened with Titus, right? To show you that these kind of remedies don't work. If you try to play games like this, you don't get away with stuff like that. That's the idea. Okay, very good. So another interesting thing we find in the Parsha is like this, right? That we find that the Jews start to complain after they crossed over to the sea. They went to the other side. What happens? They start complaining, right? What does that mean? We don't have water. We don't have bread. We don't have meat. We don't have. The truth is, right? They had everything. In actuality, they had everything. So what happened was they were looking for things to complain about, because what am I trying to tell you, right? That a person always has to know one thing. That you can always look at the positive side of something or the negative side, right? So what happened was that these Jews had to learn one issue, which is very important in Judaism. That don't look at the half-empty cup. Look at the half full. A person can always complain about every predicament in his life. To say, why did this happen to me? But you don't look at the good side also. Because God, when He brings you something good, there's also some test over there as well, to test you a little bit, to see how you can handle, the situation. So what happens is that you have to understand that you're being tested also. So not everything is going to be peachy and rosy, and the rose garden, this kind of thing. It's not a rose garden life, So therefore, what happens is that a person has to take this with stride. But the Jews were not doing like that. What does that mean? HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought them the man, right? The manna. He brought them the special food for them to eat over there. And this food was like very light. It didn't get digested. Everything was absorbed into the stomach. So there was no waste product coming out. Everything was very, was very unusual. This is the idea. So what happens is that the Jews are complaining about this, right? Oh, this man, it's too light, whatever. But the truth is that the man was very, very good. What does that mean, very, very good? Actually, it was the best food. Why? Because it gave them any taste that they wanted. Whatever they wanted to taste with the man, they would taste it. That's the idea. So how can a person complain about something like that? No waste product. You don't have to go to the bathroom. You're always clean. Your body's always clean. But they said, no, they always found something, to complain about. Even when it comes to something like that. Even something, such a good gift like that. You can get any taste out of it you want. You don't have to worry about anything. No digestion, no issues with the stomach. Right? That's the idea. So what are you doing over here? Oh, okay. Maybe we should go into the shul, Let's go into the shul.
Inside?
Yeah.